Hi, I'm Stephanie, and right now I'm going to talk about Activity 3 of Unit 1 as a video blog. So the question for Activity 3 was, how do expectations of good leadership differ between cultures? And specifically mentioned in part 1 of that question was the leadership styles in Western schools versus Eastern schools and what we look for in good leadership. So I've been a language assistant for 8 years, and before I came to work in Spain, I worked in Japan. So I have experience in both Eastern school systems and Western school systems. So I can talk about both at length. In Western schools, we tend to value more democratic style leadership because we are an individual based society. We prioritize the individual over the group. Our personal needs and desires are the most important thing to us. And so, because of that, we think our opinions are quite valid, and we want leaders to be able to listen to us, to take in our advice, our feedback, and to respond to that. We also prefer our leaders to be a bit more flexible because we're more focused on our own individual rights. And finally, when we have collaboration in a school, we like a leader that will collaborate with us. We don't worry about collaborating above or below our hierarchy. So, now in Eastern schools, at least in the Confucius-based societies, they have a collectivist culture. So in their culture, the group is the most important thing. So in a school system, that would mean the school is most important. And every decision made is for the good of the school, which is fairly in line with pedagogical leadership usually. They prefer leaders to be a little more assertive because they have a hierarchical system, and it's usually based on age. So the older you are, the higher you tend to be in the hierarchy. This is changing very slowly because of globalization and new Western-oriented companies working in Japan. However, the school system is still operating in this way. In this hierarchy, everyone has a role, so they're very status conscious. If you are in an office with a group of people, every single person in that office will know who is above them in the hierarchy and who is below them, and it changes what they can say and how they say it to the other person, because this hierarchy is built into their very language, at least in Japanese culture. This is not so much the case in Chinese culture. But Chinese culture used to more closely align with Japanese culture before the communist movement in China, so 100 years ago or so. Anyway, also in Eastern culture, they like self-sacrificial leaders. So for example, if a huge accident were to happen in a school and a child was severely hurt, whether or not the principal was responsible for whatever happened, it could have been the child's fault. Maybe. Maybe the child was doing something that's against the rules and they weren't supposed to be doing. But it doesn't matter. The principal will formally apologize, and in extreme cases, they'll even step down. Also, teachers are expected to sacrifice their own needs for the good of the school, such as going home at 9 or 10 p.m. at night. So, now what do we expect in international schools? Be it because of globalization and Western dominance in our societies today, or because when you get a bunch of people from different cultures together, it can be quite difficult to understand one another and to agree on things, we tend to operate under a more democratic style of pedagogical leadership. Also, in international schools, the leadership is very distributed because of a high turnover rate, because leaders are always moving on to other school systems, other countries, and therefore we need distributed leadership in order for that leadership to be sustainable within the school. We expect our leaders to be transformative. International schools are usually they're always looking for improvement, always looking for changes. They're some of the first schools to adopt new methodologies because they don't have to answer to the public school system of the country where they reside. And I think we usually appreciate more participative leaders within our international schools, because international schools are generally private schools, and therefore they have a more tight-knit, family-oriented group. Now, where can problems occur between different cultures interacting in these international schools? Well, there can be a lot of issues, such as if you have a school leader from an Eastern-based country, such as Japan, they'll be very serious during the workday. They'll want everything to get done without distractions, and they will expect people to stay late. But not only will they expect people to stay late, they also might expect something like all of the teachers going out together on a Friday to have some drinks, and then that's when you get to know them and you get to have your small talk, because you can't have small talk during the workday, not really. Whereas a Western employee would say, no, Friday night is for me. And no, I can't be staying at the school until 8 p.m. That's against my contract. I need to go home. The Western employee might work on teacher things at home, but they'll expect to go home regardless. Then if you flip that, a Western leader might be extremely friendly, trying to get to know their employees at work so that they can connect with them on a personal level. Whereas an employee from an Eastern culture might say, you're being way too familiar at work. Why are you wasting time? You should be focused on the job. This leader is so lazy. So there's a difference of perspectives there. However, I think that as international school teachers and as leaders of international schools, there's a general understanding that there is a difference in culture, and we need to be more flexible for that reason. And I think the longer someone works in an international setting, the more used to the idea that they get that they shouldn't automatically assume the worst of someone. It may actually be a cultural difference. And that's all from me. So thanks. Bye.